One of the primary contingencies in any real estate contract that must be satisfied is the home inspection contingency. Once the parties conclude attorney review, the buyer is then allowed to schedule a home inspection. This is something that is of utmost importance in the transaction, especially for the buyer, as again, the inspection contingency allows the buyer to perform an inspection, present a repair request if needed, and potentially legally void the contract in the event there are unresolved issues and or defects associated with the subject property. The time frame for inspections is typically 14 days once the parties conclude review. An attorney is typically able to get an extension if needed, but usually 14 days is a sufficient amount of time to perform an inspection. What happens is the buyer will contact a general home inspector. That inspector will visit the property, obviously. The buyer is certainly able to be present during the inspection. It's facilitated by the realtors. The inspector will obviously inspect the property, will then issue a report based on his or her findings. That report is subsequently forwarded to the attorney, who will then review with the buyer. At that point in time, the attorney will formulate a repair request to send out to the seller's attorney. This request will also include a full copy of the inspection report. The inspection contingency is important because it can obviously uncover defects that were not evident when a buyer is making the offer to the property. It allows a buyer to demand that the seller perform a repair. It allows a buyer to potentially receive a credit to offset any type of defects that must be addressed after closing. And as previously stated, it does allow a buyer to legally cancel the contract if there are unresolved issues. A buyer is able to waive the inspection, and this is something that you're seeing in today's marketplace. A seller is able to diminish a buyer's inspection rights. As an attorney, I advise against this. It's obviously favorable for a buyer to have inspection rights. However, with the competitive marketplace, it is not uncommon for buyers to agree to diminish those rights in terms of limiting any type of issue that can be raised to structural, environmental. Cosmetic items are not considered defects under New Jersey law. The buyer cannot ask the seller to repaint the home, repaint the walls, things of that nature as well. So that's something to be aware of. But the inspection is important because it does allow her to raise issues, again, that were not evident at the time of the offer. Generally, during the home inspection, multiple inspections are performed. In New Jersey, what I commonly see is the general home inspection. Typically, buyers will also perform a radon inspection, as radon is prevalent in New Jersey, and a wood-destroying insect inspection as well. Most lenders will require a clear certification in terms of the wood-destroying insect. So that's something that a buyer typically wants to get. A buyer is free to perform whatever inspections he or she desires, though. I've seen tank scans, infrared inspections, any mold inspections, any specific inspection a buyer desires, he or she is able to schedule. Again, the only constraint is these inspections must be performed within the 14-day period, as is typically noted in the contract. While an attorney is able to get extensions, it is important to be cognizant of those time frames. Last thing you want to do is run out of time, especially if you're doing inspections over and above what the norm might be. Norm, again, general inspection, radon, and wood-destroying insects. If one wants to perform a specific mold test, a specific structural inspection or evaluation, infrared, tank sweep, any of those additional inspections which may have to come at a later point in time want to be scheduled within the allotted time as per the contract.